It's pretty bright out there today. It's a nice day. It's a very sunny day. The weather that you're seeing out there today is the same weather that's shining down on your kids. A little cool, but it's a very bright day. Good day for hiking and getting out and seeing the sights. No doubt about that. Okay, well, let's get started. I guess we're going to have a focus primarily on transition, but I think we probably better talk about uh, what that means when we get to transition. One of the tenets that I would say that has been a big part of Star Guides, and when we decided that we would be continuing to do a little sojourn here in the adolescent treatment industry, was that the three of us had been so disenchanted with the adolescent treatment industry as it was that we wanted to make sure that the parents that were working with us understood that when their child came to the program, that they weren't necessarily merely handing them over to us, and that there was going to be some kind of magic that was going to take place. I get a little bit irritated when I speak with other therapists, I guess less seasoned therapists, I guess we could say, from typically other programs, when they tell me things like, well, when a child comes to do treatment in the wilderness, that means that there's, it's like 80% wilderness and 20% therapists. And, my thought is, well, if that's the case, then why would we even need then a therapist out there, right? And I think that I have been a bit disillusioned with lazy therapists in the past. And so, at the point where we decided, well, if we're going to do something like Star Guides, one of the pieces has to be that parents understand that they are an integral part of this treatment, and that it's not merely handing your child over, we let the wilderness do its thing, and then whenever the therapist thinks that we're finished with all of this, we'll hand your child back to you. It should never be that way. One of those elements of all of this is that if we actually are indicating to you that we are willing to provide treatment for your child, well, it also means that there is an obligation on our part that we have the ability to define for you specifically what the condition is that requires treatment, the nature of the treatment for that specific condition, and also be able to give you the assessment tools, so to speak, such that you are able to determine, is the treatment having its intended effect? Is it doing what it is supposed to be doing? Okay. And ultimately, you need to be the one that has that determination and the ability to make that determination, because after all, you are the parent. Okay. Anybody that's here at Star Guides, the therapist, the field staff to whom your child will grow, a strong affinity towards them. But yet, all of us are very, very transient figures in your child's life. Obviously, we want to share an amazing experience with them, but when they leave here, the relationship that we have with them will come to an end, right? And truly, to be completely honest, from session one, we are preparing to end the relationship. That's really what it's all about. It's not about how much I can influence you or how much significance I have in your relationships and the decisions that you make as my client. It's more of, okay, wait, there are more important people in your life, especially your parents, right? They are the ones that are going to persist with you in your journey, in your life. And you will be having many Thanksgiving dinners with them down the road, and I will never be a part of that. So that's why it's important that the parents, that you as parents are the ones who are able to use this period as an assessment interval, such that your child is being revealed to you and you have the capacity to be able to discern, okay, is the child that is being revealed, is that the child that is ready to return home, or is that the child that is ready for the next step, whatever that next step might be. Now, we've already talked, and if you've watched the previous videos, or if you've watched that introductory video of me lecturing to a large group of parents in a large group, that you know that we define the condition that requires treatment. It's somewhat of a trans-diagnostic orientation, which is what this is really all about. Obviously, the reason why your children are at Star Guides is because they share with them, or share between themselves, that kind of addictive potential that they've encountered in their lives through their use of electronics, their pornography use, the compulsive sexual behaviors, whatever that might be. But yet at the same time, those dependencies have served their purpose in allowing your child to stay on a developmental vacation, right? That's the condition that we're talking about treating, right? That's the piece. And we've also talked as well about that notion that if we are indeed treating the condition, the developmental vacation, and not merely the manifestation of symptoms that emanate from that condition, then what we are really saying is that we must, it's imperative. We really have no other choice in the matter. It's imperative that your child finds themselves in a situation such that they no longer have control of the delivery of those dependencies. That's the disruption that we talk about. Absolutely, it's the disruption. And not only are we disrupting their access to their electronics or the pornography, we're disrupting their access to any other kind of mood-altering substances that they might be using. But we have to be very, very vigilant in our capacity to disrupt your child's capacity to use the other human beings in their lives as dependencies as well. That really is the important thing, and truly that is the piece that is the most difficult. For any treatment regimen to do this, that's a very, very difficult thing. We look at that as priority number one, and that's why we also look at it with the idea that this is not merely a glorified babysitting service that, we could put your child in the wilderness and we could have, any one of a number of individuals that are just out there supervising them, and it would be okay. Or we could just stick them out there and we could do kind of adventure-based activities where they're riding mountain bikes, where they're rappelling, where they're doing bouldering. We're doing slackline kinds of activities. Or no, it's not about that piece either, because it's not about just being in the wilderness as being the curative factor. The wilderness is just a place. It's just that place. And the reason why the wilderness is as powerful as it is because there are no dependencies for your child to hide behind in that wilderness setting. Okay, so it would be ridiculous if we were to put them in that setting where the traditional dependencies, the psychological dependencies that they've used in the past are interrupted, and the dependencies that come from technology, that we interrupt those as well. It would be ridiculous if we didn't focus on making sure that we were disrupting the human dependencies. And this is the piece that for parents in particular, it's the more information that you can receive about this, obviously the more efficient the treatment is going to go. And as you may have heard me mention in the past, we only have the capacity to disrupt you as a dependency in your child's life to the extent that you are willing to allow us to do that. And if there are some individual issues for you as parents that prevent or impede your own individual ability to allow yourself to be that role as a parent, and what that actually means for your individual child, because it's going to be a little bit different for everybody, because every child is different, every family dynamic is different, right? But understanding, okay, what will that mean for me to be the parent of my child instead of a dependency? You know, and if there's something that's preventing the exploration and adoption of that stance in your life, then obviously that would be a piece that we would want to spend some time developing with you as well. While your child is doing their working on their own individual issues, then obviously there's a forum for us to be able to assist you with that piece as well. Now, truly, this is important because if we want to know when we are finished, if we want to know, well, is my child back where they need to be, we have to look at it with the idea that, okay, have they terminated the developmental vacation? And what kinds of indicators would we have out there that would tell us, gosh, okay, my child's done with their developmental vacation. They've spent this time in disruption. They've had to encounter themselves in those kind of situations where they could not merely call upon their dependencies to insulate them from taking accountability in their life. Okay, we've done that piece, but how do I know that this developmental vacation has truly come to an end? And the way that we would do that, it would be looking at developmental markers, like where would your child be if they had not been on a developmental vacation? And if we had been tracking healthy maturation over the course of their life, where would they be? What would be the developmental markers we would be looking at right now to tell us, okay, we're done with this? Number one on that list would be my child would be at a spot where they would recognize that there is such a thing as benevolent structure in their lives. Okay? Realizing that any structure that they encounter is not necessarily a threat to them. It's not a challenge, it's not a contest. That in fact, that the structure that they encounter in their life may actually be beneficial for them, and that it would be through their ability to master structure that they encounter in their life that they would have the capacity to determine, how to gain wisdom, knowledge, and competencies. Now, ideally, if everything had gone the way that we would like it to go, that that benevolent structure. More than anything else, we can begin recognizing that we're making a significant dent in the developmental vacation if your child now is willing to allow you, or is of their own accord giving the significance to you as the parent in their life. That they are doing that. They recognize, okay, gee, the structure that my parent is providing for me ultimately is going to be in my best interest, because my parent knows better than I do what's best for me, and because I know that my parent loves me, and I know that everything that my parent has done for me up to this point has been in my best interest, even when my parents have structured my life in a way that I didn't immediately agree with. But now I look at it and realize that was in my best interest. That was for my best interest. And that I love and respect my parents, and I will defer to them. I will do what it is that they need me to do. Okay. that would be the strongest indicator that we're done with the developmental vacation. Okay. And as long as I'm on a developmental vacation, it means that I will continue to need to control every relationship that I have, including the relationship that I have with my parents. And that extends even out here. It's like I'm going to need to control the relationship that I have with my therapist. I'm going to need to control the relationship that I have with the field staff. I'm going to need to be in control of the relationship that I have with, my fellow students who are here with me as well. And we can see strong indications of those kinds of things, but the part for you as parents to assess will obviously be that part, gee, am I getting indications here that my child is willing to give me the influence of a parent in their lives, that they trust me, that they trust that my judgment concerning them ultimately is going to be the best thing for them? Do they trust me enough that they are willing to abide by whatever structure that is that I need to have for them in their lives? Because obviously as adolescents, we're still going to disagree about some things, but I need them to trust me, and I need them to recognize that I'm the parent here, and it's okay that I'm the parent, right? Now, if we start seeing stuff like that, then we know, all right, we can move forward here. And if we're at that place where we're talking about transition, then it means that we have gone through those stages that was necessary for us to achieve that place. And one of the things that I think that it's incredibly important, and sometimes we forget this, is that whole idea of change is, that's a dynamic kind of an entity, a dynamic concept, I guess we could say that it is. In that it's not merely just flipping a switch, okay? That change tends to be a multi-staged process. Some of you may be familiar with what I think is probably the most popular way. I guess in the world of psychology, I guess we could say probably the most popular way of defining those stages of changes. It comes from a psychologist whose name is James Prochaska, and he has been working on this orientation of the stages of change for years and years. It's quite a long time. And typically, if you go to any kind of an adolescent treatment program, regimen, whatever it might be, somewhere along the line, this is going to be a part of their curriculum, one way or another. Whether it's a curriculum that is actually formally introduced to students, or if it's a part of the training curriculum for staff. But the idea that there's like 5 primary stages that we're talking about here that lead to actual change, and lead to change that would promote a more permanent, lasting kind of a change in one's life. It's the idea that we can terminate our behavior, and we do it for a period of time. We do this all the time. It's kind of the difference between achieving sobriety and achieving recovery, that kind of thing. And for brief periods of time, we can cognitively control the nature of the behaviors that we are doing, and limit the unwanted behaviors. But unless we go through the actual stages and resolve them, then it's likely that we will find ourselves continuously relapsing, and you know how this goes. Anytime that you try and implement a new diet or exercise routine, or something along those lines, that tends to be what happens. So just so you know, it's like, okay, well, when we're talking about change and we're realizing there's the 5 stages, right? There's pre-contemplation, which is a period in which I am not willing to consciously acknowledge that there is even a problem. I'm not even thinking there's a problem. I don't see it as, anything that I'm doing does not seem like a problem to me. I wouldn't think that there's a problem in my life. A lot of students that show up for treatment in the wilderness are those kids who are at that place of like, what, I didn't even really know there's a problem. Okay. And I didn't see it as a problem. And if I do begin seeing it as a problem, then I tend to go into the contemplation stage, which is the second stage, right? But typically in contemplation, I'm still in that place where I don't actually believe this is my problem. Okay, it's a problem, all right, but this is a problem that belongs to somebody else. Typically, this is my parents' problem. It's their problem because they're the ones that decided that I needed to be here. Okay, I was perfectly fine. I had everything under control. It was okay with me. I was good with this, but this is a problem with my parents. And as we've talked about before, when we talk about the idea that when your child comes into the program, first of all, the first task that they have here is landing, right? Just acknowledging that this is where they are. And if there is a student who is in the pre-contemplation or contemplation stage in all of this, then they're not going to spend a lot of time working on landing and working on recognizing, okay, this is where I am now. What is it that I need? No, they're still going to be moving the ball along towards you as parents. Like I'm still going to need to be figuring out, how can I sell you on my conceptualization of all of this and ensure that you buy it, right? That I am still in control. I'm still the one that defines the terms of our relationship. I will dictate the paradigm to you. And I spend a lot of time doing that. And much of that too, if I'm not really truly believing or willing to accept that this is my problem, I'm going to still be putting a lot of energy into trying to make it so that I don't even have to be here. Okay. Or, help you as parents maybe conceptualize the idea. It's like, oh, okay, well, I had my wake up call and that's all that's really needed. Beyond the wake up call, I don't really need anything. And I'm ready to go. I think I've learned everything that can be here. Or, I become highly concerned about the idea that, gee, what happens if I get finished with the program and I have to be here longer than I need to be, those kinds of things. I'm still dictating the terms to you as parents. I'm still not really landed here. I'm not acknowledging, hey, wait a minute, this is my problem. I created this circumstance. The reason that I'm here is because of stuff that I have done. Okay. And certainly, in my life, there may have been elements that occurred to me previously. And this would be some of the trauma-based work that we would be doing. There is likely been some of that has been a part of who I have been, who I have become, and who I will become. But at the same time, the problems that I'm dealing with right now belong to me. Okay? I own them. I have created them. They are my problems. And once I get to that place where I'm willing to recognize, okay, this is a problem for me. And it may take a while. It may take a number of days, weeks, whatever it might be during the time that they're here, even for us to continue to point out to them, who they are, and they continue to get revealed over and over and over about the decisions that they're making. And it's like, hey, wait a minute. Okay, here we are. Your parents aren't here. Your friends aren't here. You have no mood-altering substances that are impacting your behavior. There's no spending 16 hours a day gaming here. You're not watching pornography. Okay, none of that's happening. You're making these decisions. It's all you, dude. It's all you. Okay, what's that really all about? This is who you are, man. So it may take quite a while to get to that place where your child decides, okay, I guess this is my problem. Okay, I guess I am here. And then working through okay, so if I'm here, let me just continue to do the same thing I've always done. All right, let me find a way to put the minimally accepted level of effort into this. so that I can just get done with this. Well, let me do the phase work. Let me find a check sheet. Let me find somebody else that's constantly going to tell me how great I am doing, and I'm going to try and find any kind of superficial indication that I can to flaunt for you, my parents, about how well I am doing. Okay. Now I'm here, and I'm allowing myself to be here, but I'm still not really internalizing anything. I'm trying as much as I possibly can to not really make any changes. I'm just trying to be an adaptive child and hope that everybody thinks that I'm trying to make some changes. That's what's really going on. It's only at that place, after I have come to that spot of my life where I'm owning the problem, and I am realizing that if it's going to get better, it's going to be my responsibility to do what I have to do to make it better. And I'm going to have a number of false starts in all of this. This would be that place where Prochaska would define, the third step here, the third stage of that as being preparation. I'm doing whatever it is that I have to do. And sometimes there is even just like kind of a ceremonial, ritualistic type of a thing that I have to be willing to let go whatever that old stuff was that I was hanging on to, typically, whatever coping style I was hanging on to, or I have to take some risks. Or, for me, it tends to be, with adolescence, I have to let go of the idea that it's about somebody else. Okay. And that I have to acknowledge that, geez, I can't ultimately control what anybody else does. But if I am going to change, I have to experience myself as that person who is willing to acknowledge and accept who I am, and be okay with that, and be okay with that, and interact as though that is who I really am, instead of fronting, trying to set up a facade, whatever that might be. And so I'm going to be trying out a number of things. That's part of the preparation stage. A lot of the students that get here at the program, and even for the duration of the time that they are here, if we have gotten them from that place where they were in the pre-contemplation stage to a preparation stage, that will have been some significant progress. And a lot of the students that leave here are still in that preparation stage because they're still trying this out. They're still trying to figure out, what does this life actually look like? What are the kinds of things that I have to do that are going to make this stick, And during this period of time, that's when therapeutically we're trying to focus on them to figure out, okay, what really is impeding your ability to move in the direction that you need to move, Are you afraid of either the actual process, whatever it is that you're going to have to go through, what it's going to require that you do, is that the part that's freaking you out? And, for a lot of students, this is exactly the kind of thing that we're seeing, with like the, stuff like the polygraph and preparing for that. And for having to make an absolute accounting of the nature of who they have been, and the damage that they have caused, and even the damage that they have done for themselves, and those kind of things, the extent of the addictive behaviors, all of those things. That's not an easy thing to manage, especially for an adolescent who's been on developmental vacation, because part of being on a developmental vacation means I have not developed a mature coping system to be able to manage all this painful material that I have in my life. And now, as part of my treatment, and in order for me to move forward and get, beyond that preparation stage, I really have to own all of that, and I have to figure out how to handle it. And there's a lot of practice that goes into it, because I'm not going to do it real well initially. And so, for many students, we get to that place, then it's like, okay, we got that much. Now, the next part is, what does this look like in a situation that more closely approximates what you're going to find at home? The situation now where school tends to be the primary focus, right? And a reentry into a social system, with peers and that kind of thing. And, it may not necessarily mean immediately reentering into social media, but as part of an adolescent journey, there needs to be those peer relationships that they learn how to navigate those and figure out, how do I begin developing relationships based upon more healthy sexuality as well. Those kind of things. That would be where the transition goes. Now, ideally, though, again, for us as treatment providers, and I'm sure for you as parents, we would actually like the child to reach another level before they leave here. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, it obviously is quite gratifying when that child has gotten to that place where they've been through the piece where they're doing the bare minimum and hoping that they can get away with it, but finding that as they are gaining skills and knowledge and competency, and that they are actually developing a sense of confidence in themselves. This would be confidence that's based on real behavior, a sense of efficacy. Okay, I'm not so concerned about my esteem anymore. I'm not so much worried about making sure that other people are making me feel good about myself, or that they're telling me what a great person I am, or reassuring me that I am just this absolute object of adoration, whatever it might be. No, I actually am beginning to do that for myself. And I would have to say that is another huge benefit of being in the wilderness, because there are moment by moment opportunities, even if I don't want there to be, there will be those continuous opportunities for me to discover my capacity to do things I didn't know that I could do. So I'm going to develop that confidence in myself because I've seen myself do it. And it's that part of who I am. I'm actually building an identity instead of an image in my life, which is right in line with what my developmental task of adolescence should be. Helps me, like I think I've moved beyond childhood perhaps here. So I'm actually solidifying an identity, and that becomes the most important part for me. And now I become that individual who recognizes, gee, I only gain this sense of mastery through subjecting myself to things that are difficult to do. And now I begin looking for those things that are difficult to do. It's not about the bare minimum, but it's about finding opportunities to enhance what it is that I am learning about myself at this point right now. That's where mastery comes in. And then that's where I get to that place where I'm actually enjoying my experience. The experience hasn't changed. The environment hasn't changed. The people external to me have not changed. The expectations have not changed. There's really been nothing change other than me. And if I begin voicing to you as parents, if I begin voicing to my therapist, whoever it might be, how much I actually like being here, obviously that would be a huge opportunity to interpret that idea. It's like, hey, look at what you have just discovered. You have the capacity to be okay in spite of whatever it is that's going on around you. And that really is the ideal we're looking for. That would be the place where, yes, if we could transition students, every one of them at that spot, obviously we would be feeling pretty good about ourselves. But even then, the transition at that point is that idea, well, I've had this child who's been on a developmental vacation. And so if we disrupt a developmental vacation, if we've successfully done that, if I've seen that my child now is at a place where they are embracing this notion of mastery, which means that they're willing to engage in structure because they know that it's only by mastering that structure that they enhance their own sense of who they are and their confidence in their ability to do things. Then where we can transition them at that point would be much different if we're still in kind of that preparation stage, right? Where I'm still trying stuff out. I'm not really sure how it's supposed to go yet, but I'm still trying some stuff out, right? But, at that mastery place, it will be kind of like the switch has been flipped now, because I will be behaving in a way that will appear to be different from what it was when I started the process. With the preparation, if I'm still in that kind of preparation area, yeah, there will be those times when I'm trying it out, but it's still pretty easy for me to revert back because I'm not feeling completely confident in my ability yet, and I'm not feeling confident yet that I'm ready to make that actual changing action for good. So the trick is I've got to take my child and when I transition them from star guides or whatever that might be to whatever the next step is, I need to reinsert them in their developmental continuum, right? And it would be really nice if I could just find the age appropriate slot. Okay, let's see. I have this child who is 16 years, 5 months. Okay, here on the developmental continuum is where they should be at 16, 5 months. So let me just put them right in there and let them carry forth in their life. I wish that were the case, but typically if we try stuff like that, we're setting them up to fail, and we're setting ourselves up as parents to have to deal with that. And as I have mentioned before, I, certainly have a personal interest in making sure that students continue to capitalize on the sense of strength that they encounter once they leave Star Guides. Okay? And certainly, with them being in a place where they're still thinking with their adolescent brain and all of those kind of things, I get it. I know how this goes. They will tend to overestimate their actual capacities and their actual abilities, and they tend to underestimate the significance of the levels of structure and support that they have had during the time that they've been here at Star Guides. Okay, so they're going to want to put themselves in situations that they're not really ready to manage yet because they think they are, but they're really not. And that's the place where, again, you as parents get to assess, well, how far along down from the developmental vacation has my child actually traveled? Because you as parents are the ones that ultimately are going to have to make that decision to say, you know what, here's what I need you to do. I actually think this is what's going to be best for you. Here's what I need you to do. And if my child is saying to me, okay, yeah, if that's what you need me to do, I'm going to do it. Because again, I see you as the person that knows best. You know better than I do, and I love and respect you. You're my parent. I want you to be my parent. I want to have the benefits that go along from being your child, so I'll do what it is that you want me to do. But if I'm saying, you know what, I'm not really comfortable with you, like coming immediately home, I need an intermediary type of a situation to take place before you do that. And, as the child, then I start negotiating and bargaining and arguing and cajoling and whining and, whatever it might be, even threatening, okay, forget it, I'm going to just run away, whatever it is that I'm doing at that point. You as parents, obviously that would be disappointing, but there's also another part about that where you can step back and say, what a relief. That this is really good information because, if this is where we are, then it tells us we're still in the disruption phase, okay? We're still working on the disruption part of all of this. So it means that the decision that we make about where that next step, where that transition is going to be, needs to take that piece into consideration. Now, in other terms, too, as we talk about this, especially if you are thinking in terms of, all right, what do I have to think about as far as my child actually coming home and residing with me in my home? What do I think about? What do I bring into consideration? And I would say it's not that hard really to figure this piece out, because one only has to observe the behavior that's taking place right now. The level of behavior, the level of processing, the level of responsibility, accountability, that my child is taking at this moment, wherever they might be, star guides, wherever they might be. That's what I'm going to get at home. Okay. Whatever they are doing at this moment, right now, whatever level they've achieved, that's what I'm getting at home. Okay. There will be no magic transformation that takes place in the car ride or the plane ride from star guides to home. Okay. The best that they are doing here is going to be the best that I will see there. And if I am getting very, very strong indication that my child is taking responsibility for themselves, if I'm getting very strong indication that my child is taking that accountability for the addictive process that they may have going on in their lives, and that they're not discounting that they're not falsely assuming that they still have control over that piece, that they are indicating to me and giving me indications through their work that the relationship that they have with me is the most important thing in their life at this point, that they're willing to do whatever they need to maintain that relationship, then, that would be that time where we would say, okay, let's see how this looks at home. But if my child is still in that place where they're all about getting away with stuff, and they want to tell me, oh yeah, by all means, yeah, by all means, oh yeah, I'm ready to come home. Yeah, I don't ever see myself ever doing that old behavior ever again. But if it's been just a superficial effort, if it's been just me maintaining this image of myself, and I'm still not really willing to let you be the parent, then at home it's not going to be any different. There will be a honeymoon period, but the first time that we get to a conflict where we have to engage in a problem-solving situation, my child is not going to want to give up the control of the relationship. That will still be the most important thing to them, and we run into problems. And part of my personal interest in all of that is that if a child finds themselves in a situation that they really weren't prepared to handle, and it does tend to go south, or they find themselves in that place where they are extremely vulnerable to returning to addictive behaviors, and that's what happens, then again, thinking with their adolescent brain, the first thing that tends to conceptualize for them is that idea. It's like, oh, well, star guides didn't work. Okay. And the problem is that they tend to now discount the experiences that they've had here, even though these were hard-won experiences. And the part of star guides working would primarily be, well, did it do what we needed it to do? Did it reveal you to yourself? Did it show you who you were? Okay. Did it show you who you are? Did it allow your parents to have an accurate picture of who you are? Because really that would be the work part of the program. Anything over and above that would be your engagement, in your own work. But as far as the program working, if it revealed to you who you are, then it did exactly what it needed to do. And I truly, I wouldn't want students to discount this experience. I would prefer, and certainly the work that I do with students in the field tends to be that idea. It's like, look, if you really are not serious, if there is this part of you that's saying, gee, Doc Dan, I still am at a place where I think pornography and other forms of sexual stimulation are going to be the most important thing in my life right now. I'm not ready to give it up. And I would say, okay, that's cool. Then let's at least take that responsibility for that part. If that's who you are going to be, let's find that way of how you can at least take responsibility for that piece and move towards independence. Okay. As opposed to, let me just look like I'm doing what somebody else wants me to do, so that when the true me comes out, then once again, everyone is disappointed, and I have uh, continued to damage the relationships that I have with the only people in my life who have chosen to care about me. So I wouldn't want them to discount the experience, even if they don't get to a place where they believe or have been led to believe that they need to be at the conclusion of a Star Guides experience. On that continuum of change, they may have made some significant effort, even if it means I'm just going from pre-contemplation where I'm not acknowledging any kind of problem to the idea where I realize, ooh, this really is a problem. And I may have something to do with this problem, that kind of thing. Or to get to that place, like I was saying, man, it's great when you start seeing students saying, well, let me try this out. Let me see if this works. Let me see if I can do this. Let me see if there is another way of thinking about this. Let me see if there is another way of engaging other people. Let me see if there is another way of coping with the kinds of things that have been overwhelming to me. It's incredible. And it's even more incredible when we're seeing students that are actually more or less saying, hey, bring it on, I'm ready. I need to have hard things in my life. I need to be challenged because I need to learn how to master structure. That's the most important thing to me. So again, I guess in all of this, it would be making sure, especially in the nature of the letters that your student is sending, the communication that you're getting from them, looking at indications that your child is giving you the position of significance in their life as the parent, that they are deferring to you, okay? That they are recognizing that you are the source of wisdom that and structure, and that it's a benevolent structure, that you want what's best for them, and they're willing to do what they have to do to make sure that you as parents know that they trust you, okay? And if they don't trust you, then you really can't give them opportunities to be trusted. If they don't trust you, that the structure that you are providing for them is ultimately what's going to be best for them, then it's going to be hard for you to begin backing off the external sources of control that are going to be necessary initially. It's like, okay, I'm going to control the internet. I'm going to control the computer. I'm going to control whether you have access to a telephone. I'm going to control where you are. I'm going to control whether or not you're driving the car. Any of those kinds of things. I'm going to control whether or not you can be by yourself, whatever that might be. So, at the point where I start backing off of those external controls will only come to the extent that my child is giving me indications that they trust me. So if I'm still getting letters that even in a subtle way, my child is trying to sell me on their plan on how this should be, okay? And trying to get me to accept what they think the relationship should be, then that would be difficult for me to be able to assess that, saying like, all right, my child really does trust me. I get it. My child is willing to trust me. And I can only make decisions for them. I can only make decisions, for them and myself based upon how much does my child actually trust me. And it has nothing to do with how much I love them. That's already a given. And that part is not going to change. But how much does my child trust me? And how important is it to them that they know, or that I know that they trust me? Because they have to be willing to work for that. Okay, so with that in mind, would there be like a specific, an element of anything that we've talked about here today that needs a little more precision or an expansion here? Let me see if I can see. I guess not. Any part of this that we would want to expand on at all? Further clarification.
Can you hear me?
Sorry. I can. Yeah, go ahead.
Dan?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you could or not. First time doing this. So I just had a quick question about when you were talking a second ago about, I'm trying to look back over my notes there, between when they're actually, when they're changing their identity, and
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find where I wrote it. I'm so sorry.
No, take your time. Go ahead. We're not in a huge rush here.
Well, I guess, one question was, this is a second question, and I'll try to go back to my other answer was, if your child has a comorbid diagnosis like ADHD, do you see them getting to that stage of change slower? Because I know that they're, developmentally they're usually delayed a few years. Do you usually see that they're progressing in the wilderness or getting to that point of change slower
Yeah,
than
well,
other
primarily
kids?
because there's like processing difficulties that take place within that. It takes a little more time for me in that case to connect the dots. But yet at the same time, it's the same process of me acknowledging that, okay, this is likely an aspect of the human being that I am that's not necessarily going to change much over my lifespan. Okay, I'm a living testament to that. I think, if you were to actually ever talk to my wife and she could tell you about the monument to my own ADHD that's out in our back barn, yeah, it's like that's going to be a part of who I am. But I still have to get to that place where I recognize I can't use my diagnosis as a dependency either. That at the moment that I throw the magic ADHD words or my learning disability or whatever, bipolar, whatever it might be, or there would also be those students that we hear an awful lot about: my adoption, okay, my parents' divorce, my early childhood trauma. All of those things are obviously going to be difficulties. They're going to be obstacles that I will have to overcome in my life. And as long as I am working on figuring out a way to gain some command over those obstacles, I'm okay. As long as, if that's the case, that's the progression that I'm moving towards. If I'm still stuck in this mode where I am using these as dependencies so that ultimately there will be a component of my life over which I don't believe I have to take any responsibility, then it's going to take me a little longer because I'm not going to be working on gaining this confidence in my own ability to deal with life in spite of whatever crap I'm dragging along with me. I want to have confidence still in my ability to manage this as opposed to having confidence in some external thing making it okay for me,
Okay.
and confidence in my ability to marshal that external thing, that to get somebody else to marshal that energy to make me okay.
Okay. My second question was, how do you really make a determination, going back to what you were talking about, internalizing versus adapting? How do y'all make that determination there a little bit? But, that they're not, versus saying, okay, my child is really internalizing this, versus being that they're just, playing the game and adapting to what's going on out there.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
do you figure which is which, or what indications do you see in the field to show that?
The primary component of that is that I'm going to see consistent evidence in everything that they do that I'm doing this because this is the human being that I need to be. Okay, and that's where as far as like the star guides, stages that we go through, we talk the landing, the integration places, that piece where, well, here I am doing the bare minimum, and then moving on to mastery and then transition. All right. So it's if I'm still in that integration piece, right, where I'm looking good. And this is a great place for most students that are here. They've made a career out of looking good. They find a way. They do whatever it is that they have to do to look good. Even when they screw up, they're really good at appearing contrite, right? They're really good at, recompense and gaining forgiveness and things like that. They're really good at that. They're not so good on the front end of that, but they're really good on the back end. So I need to see this consistent behavior where I am doing what I need to do because that's who I am becoming, as opposed to, well, I'm doing what I'm doing to try and get you to do something, right? And I hear this all the time. I have students that'll tell me, well, I tried not stealing for an entire week and it didn't work. Okay. Like, huh. Yeah. So you refrained from stealing other students' food for an entire week and it didn't work. Yeah, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Well, because the staff are still telling me that they don't trust me. Okay. It would be that kind of a thing. It's like, I'm not really refraining from stealing other people's food because I don't want to be a thief. Okay. Because that's not the human being. I'm doing that because I need somebody external to me to respond to that and deliver what I need them to deliver. That's a huge part of that. The other part is that there is almost a paradoxical kind of a circumstance that students have to deal with in their treatment. The idea, especially those that are very, very adaptive when they come to treatment here, or those that have been through all kinds of other treatment conditions prior to being here, and they've kind of charmed their way through therapy, is allowing right from the start, hey, look, I don't trust you, okay? That you and I we're likely not even going to know each other long enough in order for me to ever trust you, okay? And at the same time, I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm just your therapist, okay? I'm not going to be the one that's sitting at Thanksgiving dinner with you. That's not me, okay? So I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm not going to be telling you how to run your life. I'm having enough trouble with my own life. I'm not going to tell you how to run your life. So it's okay that you don't trust me, but now here is the task. We have to figure out, how do we exist together? How do we live genuinely in this situation where there is no trust? So that if whatever it is that you decide to do, it's all you, it's not me. And you're going to show me. You're going to show me if you are still, everything that you're doing is for my benefit, or if this is really who you are. And, in the letters that you get from your child too, you'll be seeing that too. If they're emphasizing all of the things, all of the superficial kinds of things that they're doing, and all of the commendations they are getting from staff and other students and how well they are, as opposed to, hey, you know what? I've really been doing some soul searching here. And this is what I'm thinking and feeling about our relationship. If I'm spending time on sharing with you what I am discovering about myself, as opposed to, here, let me give you my list of accomplishments this week so that you will see how well I'm doing. That kind of thing would be a nice indicator as well that it's getting internalized.
Okay. I don't want to monopolize things, but my very last question is, when you were talking about the preparation for change, and what is life going to look like to make this stick, and when they're starting to beginning to change, how do you deal with, since a lot of these are like sexual behaviors, and especially for the girls, how do you deal and handle with like the guilt and shame that come up with that, that these kids are kind of dealing with? I mean, I know they have to sit with that emotion and kind of deal with it, but I guess, what is your take on the role of guilt and shame?
Yeah, well, it will be kind of an individual type of a thing for each student, because each of them are going to be at a place where they will be responding to that emotion. Most of them have it buried pretty deep. There's a number of layers of material that you have to get to that actual, that shame piece. And, I tend to encourage students to try and understand, okay, so what is that actually telling you about it? Because if you're actually feeling that, it's telling you some information about who you are that's important for us to understand wherever they go. And if they go, well, I'm just this bad person, yada, yada, yada. It's like, well, where did that come from? Why would you, where there be that sense as a result of what you did? Because obviously there's this other part of you that is saying, here is the ideal of what you need to be, okay? Or something that you've embraced, or there's a significant part of you that's saying, this is the direction that we need to be, and if those two are conflicting and you're feeling some shame, then there's two there's two parts of that information that we need to be able to manage at the same time. It's kind of like, kind of the DVT piece where it comes in, where I'm expanding my ability to feel shame, but yet at the same time be okay. Because really that would ultimately become that healthy person that I need to be. That idea that I can biff it, but I can be okay at the same time. And typically with adolescents who are on a developmental vacation, traumatized adolescents who are in kind of the RAD spectrum and those kinds of things, those two concepts can never intermingle. It's because they don't have that core identity where they've started out being okay. And like I left it, it's like, ooh, I'm feeling some embarrassment and some shame, and this really hurts, this really hurts, this really hurts. But at my core, I know I'm still okay. And I know I'm an okay, valuable human being. I can recover from this. But, like I was saying, traumatized individuals can't do that. That's why I have to control my external environment so closely. And I can't come into contact with anything that tells me that I'm feeling some shame. And I try to use it with the idea, man, if you're feeling some shame, that's a good thing, because there is some information about what you truly believe about yourself and about who you need to be that's important for us to explore. So yeah, the shame is obviously going to be incredibly painful, but at the same time, we have to explore the opposite end of that and understand, well, what is it saying that as how it needs to be, and move in that direction as well. I can be, and again, I guess I say this so many times, this gets to be the work that I do with these guys, but it's like, okay, I can feel that pain. I can feel whatever that emotion might be, that guilt, the fear, the sadness, the shame. Sometimes it's disgust, I can feel that and still be okay, and that's the goal that we're looking for. It's still going to feel the way that it's going to feel, but I can still be okay. And part of this too would be where I have that reliance upon you as parents to assist me in this endeavor as well, where I have you as parents recognize, or have your child seeing, well, look, there's nothing that's real happy, feel good kind of a thing that's going on with your parents about all of this as well. They are grieving, they are sad, but at the same time, this is what it looks like for an adult to manage this. I am still sad, I am grieving. There will probably be a part of this that I will have to lament for some time in my life, but yet at the same time, I'm still being the human being that I need to be. I am not completely incapacitated by my pain. And maybe that I'm not necessarily getting over my pain, but I am finding out how I continue to live my life with my pain. So there's a lot that goes into that. I suppose we could talk a lot more about that, but we had better call it for today.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're certainly welcome. So we'll be talking again, I suppose, in a couple of weeks. Is Ricky still on there? Yeah, I guess it's a couple of weeks, right? Is that what's...
Yeah, next week not next week, sorry, in 2 weeks on the 21st, we're actually going to have one of our other therapists, Kenna Fry, do one of these meetings. She hasn't given me a topic yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be really good.
Well, you can always feel free to write in what you would like Kenna to talk about, Jess.
Oh, yeah.
Give her something really tough. I would really like you to expound on, yeah.
Yeah, so the 21st is our next one, and it's going to be kind of fry. And then we are going to be doing these again in January. We're going to start on the 4th of January, which is the first Wednesday of the new year. And we're actually going to be starting over with the developmental vacation concept. So we'll be starting with the disruption, the very first step in the developmental fundamentals, which is disruption. And Doc Dan will be joining us again on that one, and we'll be talking about that. So again, if you guys have questions or certain topics that you do want to talk about, feel free to email me or your therapist or anything like that. And we can get a whole special session just to talk about that specific thing if you feel like it's something really important. So just let us know.
Yeah, we need this to be as helpful for you as it can be. So
exactly.
Yeah. We don't want to be the one imposing on you what we think is the most important stuff, when in reality there might be something a little more helpful for you. So let Ricky know, and we can adjust accordingly.
Okay. Thanks, guys, for joining us, and we'll probably be in touch later on, and we'll see you again later.
Very good. Enjoy.